Dear learners, welcome to teleconferencing session. This is Dr. A. Senthamizh Kanal. I am from Faculty of Public Administration. In this session, we will discuss about BPSC 106 Understanding Public Policy. In this course, we are going to discuss about the topic on meaning, nature, and scope of public policy. In the day-to-day life and in the academic pursuit, that public policy emerged in the beginning of 1950s. Since then, it has changed. It got a new dimension. It got a new update also. So you can't define public policy in a definite term. It's a vague. Okay, it is frequently used in our lives. Like for example, we used to say new education policy, new agriculture policy, new health policy, and a new program. So likewise, new foreign policy, and so on, so on. We are used to do every day. We are used to do discussed about everyday life only. So it is an area which has to do with lot of spheres. So these policies has a lot of sphere, but mostly which focused upon the public, that is public. So these actually principles, and we can so say that which is it is a basis of government, or otherwise we can say that it is a government basis its policies, like whether the government is successful, whether the government is failure, whether the government is, whatever the comment you can make it on that based upon the public policy only. So public policy always used to address the key concern. So public policy used to study process of government. Okay, public policy, how the government is working on it, and what are the systems of law, regulatory measures, courses of action, funding preference, and concerning given issue involving governmental bodies or not. Like for example, the study of process of government, in the sense how that you have to make a administrative policy or administrative development kind of thing, and systems of laws you have to make rules and regulation, and you have to make regulatory measures, and based on that what are the courses of action we have to take it out, and the funding patterns and also. So in the past studies, public policy is dominated by the researchers and students of political science. They mostly concentrated on the institutional structure and the philosophical justification of the government. Institutional structure, in the sense they used to talk about the, you can say that Niti Aayog, Planning Commission, National Development Council, or Green Tribunal. So likewise, they used to focus upon the institutional structure and the political justification, philosophical justification of the government only. But the focus rarely on the, they never concentrated upon the policies. It isn't, I am telling about that, it is an earlier era. So political science was some extent to preoccupied with the institutions, political institutions, and in groups relation to the success, in regarding to the political power. So it is hardly recognized the role. So organization play towards the formation of the policies and like for example, earlier in 2004, traditionally Thomas I, he said that traditionally the institutional approach in political science did not devote much attention to the linkages between the structure of government institution and the content of public policy. So these are things I am talking about the before, actually 1950s. Before that time, that political science perspective used to be mostly on the structure of government institution only, and not the content of the public policy. So instead of political science studies in general, that describes specific government institutions, their structure, functions, and they never analyze the impact of institutional arrangement on the policy output also. He and Thomas Dye also suggested that the focus of political science is to shifting to public policy, to description and explanation of the causes and the consequences of the governmental activity. Okay, the public policy is to be explanation of the causes and the consequences of the governmental activity, while the concern of political science about the process of which public policy is determined and which public policy has increased. So most public administration students would acknowledge that the public servants themselves are intimately involved in the serving of the purpose. So the study of public administration has tended to concentrate on the machinery for the implementation of given policies. So it has attended to the organization of political public authority, the behavior of public servant, and increasingly that methods like resource allocations and the behavior of public servants, and that administration and review and all. So this approach, okay, it is difficult to determine much about the way policy is formulated. Actually, if you look into that, mostly focus upon the experience of the policy making based upon the feedback in the policy process. But public policy is more political than public administration. So it is effort to apply political science to public affairs, but the concerns of the inside the public administration only. So if you say that in a brief, past studies on public policy have mainly dominated by the scholars of political science and the public administration. They are mostly concentrate on the structure, but the public administration people started focus upon the content of the policy and the process of formulation and its implementation and also. So this is the base about the public policy. Now we are moving into the idea of public and the policy. So what do you mean by idea of public? If you look into that, the concept of public policy, there is an area of domain of life. It's not a private and it's a purely individual, but it held in common. So public dimension is generally referred to public ownership or public purposes and all. So the public companies, the public compromises the domain of human activity, which is regarded as requiring government intervention or common action. Actually, if you look into that, there has been always a conflict between what is public and what is private. So based on that, there are 10 key differences are there. One is that the public sector faces more complex and the ambiguous task. If you look into the private sector, their task and their motto is entirely different. But if you into the public sector faces more complex and ambiguous tasks. Like for example, India, take into the example of India, it is a length and breadth, that it is a vast area. The one policy, we are divided into north, south, west, and eastern. One policy doesn't suit to the other regions. Other region policy doesn't suit for either. So it makes more complex and the ambiguous task. And another thing is that when you are implementing, it has more problems in implementing its decision. Like for example, if you look into that past, if you take the national new agriculture policy, new education policy, we have witnessed these are the things. So you can look into that, what are the problem has been come and how it has been addressed and all. It implies to more people a wide range of motivation. Unlike private sector, public policy, you need a wide range of people and they need a wide range of motivation also. And it is more concerned with the securing opportunity or capacities. It more concerned with compensating the market failure, and it used to have a stricter standards of commitment and legality. Like private sector, they also used to have standards, but we used to have a laws, rules, regulations, and guidelines. That would be more, that would be legality, that would be more concentration also. So it has a great opportunity to respond upon fairness and injustice. It must operate or appear to operate in the public interest, and it maintain the minimum levels of public support above what is required in the private industry also. So these are the basic things about the difference between public and the private sector. Unfortunately, that policy itself something which it take a different forms. Okay, there is a thrust to designate the outputs of the political system, and you can say that studies of policy areas concentrate and focus upon the evaluation of the policy decision. So these are the issues vary from the public and the private sector. So next one is the concept of public policy. We already discussed about the idea of public. Now we are moving into the idea of policy. The idea of public, the concept of policy is not very precise. Okay, policy elements like a policy, you can say that it considered a lot of various elements, and it used to maintain the guidance for action. Policy, it doesn't mean they used to mention the objectives of the policy programs and guidelines. It used to contain the various elements. It used to mention the various guidance for action. So you can say that policy is a declaration of goals, it's a declaration of course of action, a declaration of general purpose, and the authoritative decisions. Like for example, if you take as a student of public administration, if you open any public policy like national health policy, national agriculture policy, national education policy, whatever the public policy has been recently or previous one, if you introduce that, it must have a strong goals and the course of action and the general purpose and the authoritative decisions. This the government is, whether the government is successful or not, it has to determine by the implementation of the public policy only. Birkland in 2011 he said that the some of the key attributes of public policy. He said that policy is made in response to some sort of problem, okay, that requires attention. So it doesn't mean it's not like that you can create a policy like whatever you think. You have to, that policy should be response to some sort of problem, and policy is made on behalf of people, public. It's not like that as a that individual, it's not an individual attention. It has to be, it the policy has to create it on behalf of the public, and policy is oriented towards a goal and a desired state, so that we will get a solution of the problem and all. Normally if you look into that policy, it's ultimately made by the government, okay, even in the ideas comes from the outside of the government or the through the interaction of government and the non-governmental actors. For example, you can look into that. Now we are moving to the governance era. Governance era is that it's a collectively solving the problem. Here like government is to be talks about the structure, but the governance means the action part of the government. Like in now you can see that whenever the government is creating a public policy, many policy they used to update in the website, they used to get a that opinion from the public, non-governmental organization, and various civil society groups and media. So it is it's not only come from the inside the government. These used to be created by the outside government also, and policy is mostly interpreted and implemented by the public private actors, and they have a different interpretation problem, solutions, and their motivations and all. So policy is what the government chooses to do or not to do. So this is the major objective. Policy means what the government chooses to or not to do. Whether, as I already mentioned, that whether they want to, that successful or failure is to be mostly determined by the based upon the public policy only. So the concept of public policy presupposes that there is a domain of life, whether it is a private or purely individual, but held in the common only. So here that point of discussion is that public policy is to understand what we mean by the idea of public policy. Okay, and Cochran and Malone said that public policy is to mention about the government decisions, and Guy Peter said that public policy is the sum of governmental activities which is directly through agents or the influence through the life of the citizens and all. So you can say that when you are coming into the meaning of public policy, uh, pu- policy is a purposive course of action. Okay, it's a taken or adopted by those in power pursuit of that common goals and objective, and it should be added here that public policies are adopted and implemented by the government officials and individuals. So the above mentioned above I already said that definitions of Guy Peter and Cochran. Guy Peter said that public policy is the sum of government activities, whether acting directly or through agents, to influence the life of the citizens. Okay, so based upon that, all public policy making involves government at the appropriate level, like national, state, and the local. So ultimately public policy is for the people, their values and the needs. Okay, it's not like that, as I already mentioned, that public policy is not created on their own. It has to mention about the people and their values and needs. So public policy is made by the government in response to the public problem, but it is implemented by the public and non-governmental understation and all. So for that, that you have to understand the nature of for example, for that you need to understand the some of the few definitions. Like you can say that Anderson has said that policy be regarded as the purposive course of action followed by set of factor or set of in dealing with the problem and the matters of concern. And persons in 1995 he said that a policy is an attempt to define and structure a rational basis of action and inaction. And Lindbergh said that it is what governments do and fail to do and for the citizens. And Thomas Dye said that whatever the public policy is, whether the government choose to do or not to do. So these are the basic definition. So if you look into that in a simple way, public policy is a what government choose to do or not to do. So policy is a purposive course of action and adopted those by who those who are in power in certain pursuit of certain goals and objective. So the government has to decide whether what to do and what they actually do. So all public policy making involved at the all the three level as I mentioned at all. Now moving into the nature of public policy. You know that understanding public policy is a art and craft. Okay, it is an as a art. It requires insight and creativity. And why you need to creativity and identify insight means that as a public policy makers you need and identifying the social problem in devising public policies. It might address them and finding out whether these policies are addressed to the proper quality of life and all. So public policy is a craft. These action taken often from the knowledge of the social sciences and all. So the emphasis upon the public policy which the government is choose as a guidance for action. And from the viewpoint of public policies, the government can be put it into different two objectives. One is the define or specific policy or general vague or inconsistent policy. Define or specific policy, it has to mention these specific policies about. Another one is the gen and inconsistent or the only. So if you look into that, the emphasis like for example public policy is related to we can say that it's a problem solving. Here important question is whether the policy should contain a definite goal or an objective. Okay, whether the policy should contain a whether goal or objective. By goal or objective we mean the end towards the any action is directed. So policy is, you can say that it is a guidance for action and it is essential for the public policy to have a goal, objective and a purpose. So all mega policy in particular you can say that are purposeful and goal oriented, but it conceivable. Okay, it conceivable that a government can have a without any clear purpose object or the purpose and all. So far we have seen about the meaning, nature of the public policy. Now we were moving to the what are the scope of the public policy. Okay, the government is not merely a keeper of the peace, the arbiter of the disputes and the provider of the common that common goods and day-to-day services, or it has directly or indirectly become the principal inverter or the major determiner of the social and economic program. Okay, they are not like that. You can say that they used to their work is not only maintain the security of the people, and they used to distribute solve the disputes, and they are not like the service provider and like a day-to-day service, but they are the day-to-day, their work directly or indirectly become the principal inverter. They used to determine of the social and economic program. Like for example you can say that why they have to introduce new education policy, why they have to introduce a new agriculture policy, so why they have to introduce a new industrial policy, why they have to introduce the information technology policy. So based upon the need only they have to find out the what is the, they have to innovate and they have to use their creative and based upon the data they have to determine the all the social and the economic pressure. So always that there is a great pressure on governments to accelerate, if you want accelerate national development and to make use of up to date or relevant technological invention and adopt necessary institutional changes and increasing national production, so and use of the full and other resources and the standard of living and all. So for example um, you can say that recently you can say that earlier we have used as in a tech after the globalization in that due to information communication technology the scope of public policy has been varied. Now we are introduced into the artificial intelligence era. So in this era, how it has been different and how it has been made simple, how we are detecting the problem, then how the administrations are using those things also. So if you want to know about the sharp manner, you can take into that modern man, urban man. Okay, he is born in a publicly financed hospital. He received education in a publicly supported school and university, and spends part of his time traveling and publicly built transportation facilities, and communicates through the post office, through the quasi public telephone system, and drinks the public drinking water, and dispose the garbage through public removal system, and read his books in library, and go to picnics in the public parks, and he used to protected by the public police and fire health system. Eventually, if he dies again in a hospital, and may even in buried in a public cemetery. So ideological conservative notwithstanding, his everyday life is bounded up the government decision on this numerous upon the other public service. For example, if you say that any hospital, school, university, transportation facility, communication system, or you can say that drinking water and garbage waste management system, and public removal system, library. So whatever the water day-to-day activities mostly determined by the government action only, based upon the people need and all. So public policy is mostly focuses on the public and its problem. So you can say that it is the study of Eitmer observed that how, why, and what effect governments pursue particular courses of action and inaction. So public policy is that he said that how, why, and what effect government pursue particular courses of action and inaction. And Dye has said that already. I said that what governments do, why they do it, and that is the different makes. Okay, so you can say that in a as per point, as per views of Dye, what governments do, okay, why they have to do it, that would be difference makes. So the range of public policies was to the vital to the tribal and all. So public policy is, that it is related to problem solving, and here an important question is whether the policy should contain a definite goal or objective. By goal or objective, the end towards which action is directed. So, so all mega policy is mentioned that has, directly they have focused upon the guidelines and many things only. So much of the discussion, that on the scope and nature and the objectives. So the ideas of public and the policy and the nature of public policy, mostly you can look into that. Public policy plays a important area of study and practice. Since the public policy, it is the emergence of a field of inquiry, it has expanded his theoretical scope and application. So a significant part of study public policy consists of development scenarios and extrapolations and the contemporary trends also. So the present times, if you look into that, the functions of practically all governments, especially in the developing countries, they have increased it significantly. They are now concerned with the more complex and the socio-economic progress only. And also, that as I already mentioned, that there was a, that accelerate pressure on the government to focus upon the national development. For example, you can take it to the idea in India, we can say that parliament is the one of the, that most public policy making body. And after that, you can take that Niti Aayog and the cabinet meeting and the ministerial meeting, they used to decide the meetings and all. And after that, we have a constitution that used to give the guidance for all that. And after that, you can state that state level planning commission is that, state level administrative ministry there. So there are various, there various institution has been established and the state and the national level also. But we have a structure, we have a policy, we have a goals, we have a objectives, we have a guidelines. So whatever it is, we have everything. But the problem is that whether the success of the government is that measured by the implementation of the public policy, whether they have implemented successfully or not. That's why the success or failure of the government is mostly determined by the public policy. You can say that our policy like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, national sorry right to information right to information act, so these are the very successful ones. So these are the why it has been successful, and how why they have implemented, and what made them to implement. These are the interesting area and all. So towards the end we are coming to that the field of public policy has assumed considerable response to the increasing complexity of the society. Okay, it is not only public policy not only explain about the description and explanation of the causes and the consequences of the government activity, but it also have the scientific knowledge about the forces shaping of the public policy. That whereas various agencies are there, like secretarial department, they used to provide the various data to about the government. So it always that public policy is always backed up with the scientific knowledge only. So the pitch why we have to study the public policy is that the study of public policy will help us to understand the social ills and subject matter under the study. So public policy is the important for moving and social system from the past to the failure and all. So towards the end in this session we have discussed about the what is by idea of public, what is the policy, and the meaning, nature, and scope of the policy. In the future session we will discuss detailed about the various topics of the public policy. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Do you wish to be part of a television studio like this, or any other media system, or already part of any media system want to enhance